Hey everybody, be sure to support our show by checking out our sponsor. Jeff's got a new fun show talking Shakespeare, writing, and a whole lot more called Foolish Wits. He's got the bi-weekly Shattered Worlds Twitch stream, and of course, the War for the Tower. Learn more at awesomepod.squarespace.com, and of course you can check the show notes for links to everything. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, Back in the Habit, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, The Co-Host Switcheroo, The Rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. Bringing you the greatest hits from 1998. Call in with your request now. In these chapters, which are first Daenerys, then Tyrion, 47 and 48, Daenerys goes to the House of the Undying, where she is given mushrooms and then attacked by evil zombies. I'm not sure. And then Tyrion, he's still strategizing about the wildfire and getting his little bits of scraps of information. Shit's plugging right along. As are we. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
We're back! I hope that you guys missed us. I hope that you missed us so much that your lives were utterly bereft. Just a hopeless, bleak desert of nothing, with our logo on the horizon, shimmering like a mirage, uncertain if it's real. Our millions of listeners worldwide clamoring for our return. I've been notified that Congress has received some letters, and I'm happy to say, here we are. So
humble as ever.
We were named #1 podcast on vacation currently on Apple Podcasts. So these chapters, Daenerys in particular, this is one that is a lot.
Wait, can I just tell you real quick before we get into this?
Yeah, go.
When you said the chapters we were doing and you started with Tyrion, could you hear my heart drop?
Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
It's like, fuck. But crisis averted. Yeah,
Rashawn was had to resort to reading the text because the audiobook was just like washing over her and not penetrating, which I have had happen with audiobooks many times. Finding yourself rewinding the same bit and constantly tuning out at the exact same moment somehow. And there is so much happening in this chapter that it's easy for that to happen because it's all surreal, moment to moment, with no storyline to what she's seeing.
Yeah,
it's all a series of random vignettes.
Yeah, there's not like a thread that I could grab onto, and just sort of follow it through. So yeah, that shit did not go over well.
So this section, I think I said this before we went on break, that this section is one of the most dissected parts of this book series. People are just so into prophecy in stories in general a lot of the time. And then there's this is mixed in prophecy plus things that are currently happening. and past. Like, some of them are her memories. Some are things that she couldn't remember because they happened when she was too young. So it's an odd mixture of prophecy and, like, current events ticker. But she doesn't know that because she isn't aware of almost any of that stuff that's actually happening that we know about. So it's an odd place to be where some things we understand better than she does. Mm-hmm. And some things we are in the dark as much as she is. So with that said, let's get into this. So they get to the house of the Undying. And the first thing I want to mention is that, like, I think it was on the Wiki of Ice and Fire, I took a look at the House of the Undying entry because I was wondering if there was any sort of, like, I wound up not having time to read through it, but it seemed like it was more just a recap of the book very literally rather than editorializing on what they thought things meant. Mm-hmm. But there is an illustration of the House of the Undying that is a giant building that's very tall and foreboding. And, like, it's specifically mentioned in the opening of this chapter that it's a low, long building. And I just kept looking at this illustration, like, why bother? What are you doing? And it hasn't got any towers. It hasn't got any windows. There are no buildings anywhere else near it. And there is just this, like, huge grove of the trees they use to make the nightshade drink. Mm-hmm. And everybody, as they rein up, is like, yeah, no.
This place is terrible.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be here. We should leave immediately.
Yeah. And even she's kind of like, I wouldn't mind it. But I really can't.
I love that, like, they're all telling her that she should go. And then all of a sudden, fucking, what's his name? Slinks out of the shadows.
Oh my, Pyromancers.
She's just like, what the fuck? Where'd you come from?
So shady. Oh my god. Pyromancers in the show, I feel actually was, like, pretty good. Some of these little side characters, they'll cast people or they'll decide to do something with the character that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's how I felt with Zorro's and Daxos. They did a whole other thing with Zorro in the show. And I found it a little disappointing because he's such a weirdo in the books. And they made him feel a little bit too ordinary. But Pyromancers, I feel like they really nailed that sort of slinky, vermin-like quality that he has. And people are like, well, if you're gonna go, then at least take one of us. And Pyromancers is like, that's not allowed. And everybody's like, that feels highly sus. And it's just all like, you know, it feels unsafe in a way that isn't fun.
Girl, you endanger me.
You know exactly.
But she is determined, and she's going to go in alone. Mm-hmm. And then he starts to, what does he say? The girl speaks with the knowledge.
The child speaks as sagely as a crone.
And then she's like, I'm not a child. Goes ahead and takes his arm anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he tells her, every time you come into a new room, take the right-hand door. If you come in on a stairwell, climb, but never go down, and never take any door but the first door to your right. And she's like, okay, and to leave, do I do the same thing? And he's like, no. Did I say that? Same shit. So he has her drink some of this drink.
Got her dosed up and then sent her into this weird ass house. Can I tell you how dizzy I got reading these pages?
I know. Moments like this are when you really appreciate how great a writer George R.R. Martin is, because he really, like, it's like the same thing as with Kat on that cliff where she start, you know, like
Yes,
you just
yes.
feel the, oh God, no. And the first sip tasted like ink and spoiled meat, foul. But when she swallowed, it seemed to come to life within her. She could feel tendrils spreading through her chest like fingers of fire coiling around her heart. And on her tongue was a taste like honey and anise and cream, like mother's milk and Drogo's seed, like red meat and hot blood and molten gold. It was all the tastes she had ever known, and none of them. And then the glass was empty. I mean, doesn't sound great to me, but I'm glad it wasn't just uniformly terrible for you, I guess. So she goes in, and she keeps on coming into new rooms set into a configuration that does not match up with what the building looks like from the outside at all.
Right, right.
And there comes a point where there isn't a right-hand door. And she has to just kind of do her best and be like, well, I guess the closest thing to the right-hand door is the last door all the way to the left. And as this is all happening, there are some weird images and sounds going on. Mm-hmm. So, all right. I'm trying to figure out like a good spot to start from here.
Yeah, I want to know which one you want to start with.
Okay. Dany could hear sounds within the walls, a faint scurrying and scrabbling that made her think of rats. Drogon heard them too. His head moved as he followed the sounds, and when he stopped, he gave an angry scream. Other sounds, even more disturbing, came through some of the closed doors. One shook and thumped as if someone were trying to break through. From another came a dissonant piping that made the dragon lash his tail wildly from side to side. Dany hurried quickly past. And this, I have to admit, considering like how much thought has been dedicated to trying to parse some of the visions she has, this intrigues me more than anything. Is these closed doors with weird things happening inside that we never actually even get to see. I desperately want to know if George R.R. Martin actually had something in mind when he wrote those moments, or if he was just being mysterious. Did you know, like, was he just like, I'm going to write something like unnerving, and that's all he was going for? Or was he like, behind that door is the ancient king of the Andals, who, you know, like, is there, because he thinks through so many things that I would not put it past him if there was more of a story to that, but I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, they could be placeholders.
Maybe, yeah, the kind of thing that, like, later down the line he tries to act like, oh yeah, I meant to do that, and you're like, did you though? In one room, a beautiful woman sprawled naked on the floor while 4 little men crawled over her. Ugh. And basically, they are all raping and or eating her somehow. And the common accepted interpretation of this is that this is the 4 kings warring over Westeros.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Fun!
Not the reaction I expected.
It's so rare that I'm on the same page with this kind of shit.
Oh, that's
I'm
funny.
sorry. I got overexcited. My apologies, everyone.
Then she goes to this feast where all these people are slaughtered, and there is a king on a throne with a wolf head.
There sure is.
Who's dead.
This is unfortunate. So, like, this is clearly the Red Wedding. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I love, okay, I say I love, that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But there's he's got an iron crown and he's holding a leg of lamb.
Yes.
It's just so disrespectful. They would have to do him like that.
Oh, man.
But she's looking at this and has no idea what any of this could mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like all of these, kind of clues are meaningless to her.
And, this is something that first-time readers who hadn't seen the show also did not know what the fuck this meant.
You know what? Fair. That's right.
This doesn't happen until later, so...
That's right. So, yeah, okay. This
is a genuine prophecy happening there.
Okay.
So the next vision is the house with the lemon
red
tree
door?
And the red door outside, yeah. And the man, Sir Willem, and I should mention here, thank you, Austin Armenio, for sending us these notes. He has given a little summary about each of the visions.
Oh, cool.
And he wrote for this one, Dany's childhood, Derry was the loyalist knight who smuggled them out of Dragonstone and cared for them till he died when she was 6. And this is the first of several moments that happen where the things she's seeing are attempting to lure her off the path. And there's a moment later where she comes across Pyat Pri and it's all like, oh, are you done already? And then it turns out that he's not real either. And I was like, I forgot about this one. So creepy. So this is when he's like, come, you're safe now. And she's about to go to him before being like, wait, oh, he dead. Oopsies. And she begins to run as she realizes how serious this is getting. And it says, finally, a great pair of bronze doors appeared to her left, grander than the rest. They swung open as she neared, and she had to stop and look. Beyond loomed a cavernous stone hall, the largest she had ever seen. The skulls of dead dragons looked down from its walls. Upon a towering barbed throne sat an old man in rich robes, an old man with dark eyes and long silver gray hair. Let him be king over charred bones and cooked meat, he said to a man below him. Let him be the king of ashes. And that was her dad. The Mad King. So, that sucks. Sorry.
It's funny. She thinks to herself that it's her brother.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, it's, he's too tall.
I mean, there's a similar energy, girl. You could be forgiven for making that mistake.
Oh, I wonder if I'm misreading, because the next bit is she thinks of Viserys, but it says the next time she paused. So maybe she's in a different room.
Oh, yes, I see it.
Yeah,
Viserys
right.
was her thought, the first thought the next time she paused. Yeah, I think you're right.
So I'm wondering, does she get who this person on the throne is? Does she get that that's her father?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe she won't talk about this to anybody. We'll have to see. If you went through this, would you talk to anybody about it?
Oh, maybe Jorah.
Yeah, I feel like he's the only one with knowledge of what's going on in Westeros. Mm-hmm. So I would feel like if I'm going to get answers from anybody, he's the only one who would know. But also, I don't know what his reaction would be to hearing some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
So, yeah, this guy is talking about naming this child that was just born Aegon. Will you make a song for him? The woman asked. He has a song. He is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire. He said it. He said the name of the book. You ever have this with watching a movie where somebody says the thing this happened in a James Bond movie. We were an old one, and I can't remember if it was View to a Kill, and it was the most shoehorned in dialogue where they were like, yes, it is a nice view. View to a kill. And I, like, had to stop and be like, babe, you can't mean it. Because he loves these movies, and I just don't understand. It was, anyway, so, yeah. It's like one step away from the songs that tell you what the plot of the movie was at the end of the movie, you know?
Oh, my God.
Anyway, so... Let's see. The dragon has 3 heads. There must be one more. He went to the window seat, picked up a harp, and ran his fingers lightly over its silver strings. And she runs off at this point. So that was her brother Rhaegar with his wife Elia and their son Aegon. The dragon has 3 heads is a major recurring thing that people have a lot of theories about. Because she's got 3 dragons. So pretty much everybody thinks there are enough secret Targaryens for a rider for each dragon. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got Jon Snow already.
Right.
Nobody is in agreement on who the third one is. A lot of people think it might be Tyrion.
Oh.
I'll be honest, I'm not like sold on any theory in particular. That's one that I'm like interested by, but I don't really like... You know, we'll talk about that eventually, but...
Full disclosure, I did hear about this one.
Okay.
Because there were a couple of moments on the show where Tyrion encounters one of the dragons and does not, like, get eaten.
Right.
You know, and every time that would happen, you would start to see chatter.
Yeah.
You know, talking about him being the third one. But that's the only... one I'm familiar with. If there's rumors about other people, it might be. I don't know any of those.
And like I said, like it seems like that's the theory that has the most proponents behind it. It's not the only theory by any means, but I'm of the like I sort of stand in this place where I'm like, look, I wouldn't be mad if it was Tyrion, but also he feels kind of obvious because he is like one of the only other likable, you know what I mean? So part of me wants that to not be the case because I'd like to be a little bit more surprised. I don't know if it's worth being surprised if it's like fucking Theon or something though, you know? Like, so, don't ask me what I want. I don't know what I want.
You want to be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, right. So, at this point, she begins walking faster, and let's see, torches were going out, she realized, with a start of fear. Perhaps 20 still burned, 30 at most. The darkness came a little farther down the hall, creeping toward her, and as she listened, it seemed as if she heard something else coming, shuffling, and dragging itself slowly along the faded carpet. Terror filled her. She could not go back, and she was afraid to stay here. But how could she go on? There was no door on her right, and the steps went down, not up. Yet another torch went out as she stood pondering, and the sounds grew faintly louder. She's looking around and panicking over this thing coming at her. We never actually see what it is. Do you have any, like, theory on that?
On what's chasing her?
Yeah, what it is that she's hearing, like, just snuffling around. I kind of wondered if it wasn't going to be, like, the whites.
Oh.
You know? I don't, like... There's no evidence, of course. It's all just... It's not something that she sees anything of to give me a support on that. But an unseen terror that's, like, causing the fires to go out the torches to go out.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
I don't know.
Makes sense.
I was like the best I could do. This is when she does it's the first door on the right is the last door on the left. She flung herself through. And she keeps going to the right. When she stopped, she found herself in yet another dank stone chamber, but this time the door opposite was round, shaped like an open mouth, and Pyat Pri stood outside in the grass beneath the trees. Mm-hmm. And this is when he tries to convince her to come with him, that, oh yes, you're done so soon.
Mm-hmm. Then when his face decides to melt.
Yeah, he says something like, well, the Undying have shit to do. And she's like, you were the one who told me that they can wait forever because none of this time means anything to them, so that doesn't feel right. Then we have the stair opened. To her right, a set of wide wooden doors had been thrown open. They were fashioned of ebony and weirwood, the black and white grains swirling and twisting in strange interwoven patterns. They were very beautiful, yet somehow frightening. So she walks forward, and this is when she comes across this very, idyllic version of the Undying.
Yeah, it looks very nice. She's greeted properly. They've been waiting for her for a very long time,
Were you buying this while you read it? What was your thought when she got to this spot?
I didn't trust any of this until I knew she was out.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's smart. Smart.
But then, she starts to get a little bit of a closer look at things. And none of it is as good as it looked like at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And Drogon is freaking out.
Yeah, he's been bugging for a minute now. Everywhere they are, he is like, this is not the place to be.
He does not care for any of this. I don't blame him. This is not the scene. And when she leaves, the door is so heavy, it's hard for her to pull to get out into the next doorway. And this is when she comes into this weird chamber, and there is a super creepy illustration in my book of this, which I will be using as the cover art for this episode. A long stone table, above which floats a human heart, swollen and blue with corruption, beating with throbs of sound and a pulse that sends out a wash of indigo light every time it beats.
This is no good.
No, thank you. Hard pass. As Dany walked to the empty chair at the foot of the table, they did not stir, nor speak, nor turn to face her. They call her Mother of Dragons, and seem to speak to her, even though their mouths aren't moving. They're still speaking somehow. She is looking at them, realizing that none of them are even breathing, and she's wondering, they're called the Undying, but are they dead, though? And they're like, no, we are alive. This is when they begin their fucking mysterious bullshit.
Yeah. And the ones that are here are, so blue. They are, our guys upstairs, they got blue lips and everything. Mm-hmm. But these down here, they're so blue you can't even see them. That's, how deep into whatever this is they are.
Everything is blue for them. Sorry, now that's going to be in my head all night. Da-ba-dee, da-ba-da, da-da-ba-dee. Okay, so 3 heads has the dragon. Mother of dragons, child of storm. 3 fires must you light. 1 for life, and 1 for death, and 1 to love. 3 mounts must you ride. 1 to bed, and 1 to dread, and 1 to love. 3 treasons will you know. Once for blood, and once for gold, and once for love. I don't understand. Show me. Help her, the whispers mocked. Show her. The phantom shivered through the murk. Viserys screamed as the molten gold ran down his cheeks and filled his mouth. A tall lord with copper skin and silver gold hair stood beneath the banner of a fiery stallion, a burning city behind him. Rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince, and he sank to his knees in the water with his last breath, murmuring a woman's name. Glowing like a sunset, a red sword was raised in the hand of a blue-eyed king who cast no shadow. A cloth dragon swayed on poles amidst a cheering crowd. From a smoking tower, a great stone beast took wing, breathing shadow fire. Mother of dragons, slayer of lies. Her silver was trotting through the grass to a darkling stream beneath a sea of stars. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, gray lips smiling sadly. A blue flower grew from a chink in a wall of ice and filled the air with sweetness. We have explanations for all of these. So, a tall lord with copper skin. Most people believe that that is Rhaego, the son she would have had if she hadn't had the miscarriage. That this is a vision of like things that could have been.
I like that.
Dying prince with rubies flying from his armor is Rhaegar, because he had like rubies on his armor that people were like going into the river where he died to try and find on the floor of the river. I feel like Robert mentions that at some point. A blue-eyed king with a red sword who casts no shadow. Who do you think?
You're going to ask me that. At first I thought it was one of like the Night King.
It's Stannis.
But then that was my second one because of the red sword.
Was it? Or are you just saying that now?
No, let me finish. I would have gave you my second guess.
Okay.
But yeah, so, what's a cloth dragon swayed on poles amidst the cheering crowd?
Yeah, what is that one?
I mean, I guess if she were to win and liberate Westeros and other places, maybe she'd be celebrated in such a way.
Possibly.
Or it could be the other way around. Maybe they're mocking her death. I don't know.
Maybe. A corpse at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, smiling sadly. This one, I've been given a meaning by Austin Armenio here that is not the meaning that I have heard. And I'm not saying that Austin is wrong, because, frankly, I have not been current on my, like, you know, lore of what people are believing about some of these. It's the conversations have continued years after I stopped going into these forums and reading them. The theories that I had seen was that this was a Greyjoy of some kind.
That was my first guess because of the ship, but I didn't really have much else to go on.
And the fact that he has, like, specifically mentioned gray lips that are smiling, Greyjoy, you know?
And we just talked about how he always has a smile on his face when Tyrion was just thinking of him.
Yeah. But what Austin has given me here is different, and I can't tell you what it is because it's a whole other thing.
Oh, but I want to know.
It's a spoiler.
Well, what if I guess it?
You absolutely will not.
Is it somebody that I've met before?
Nope.
Oh, well, then that's so fair.
It's somebody that you have not met and that isn't in the show.
Oh. This
is actually an entire, like, storyline that isn't in the show.
Oh. Oh, well, okay.
So, yeah, once we get to that, that is what really interests me, is that whole thing, because it's going to be a complete, it's one of those that I'm just genuinely always like, is this anything? But we'll get there. So, a blue flower growing from a chink in a wall of ice. Do you have any ideas on that?
If it has anything to do with the wall coming down, it says a blue flower. I mean, the whites have those blue eyes. I'm not sure.
The blue flower is the flower that keeps being associated with Lyanna Stark. I think that it was like the crown for the like Queen of Love and Beauty at the tourney that Rhaegar gives her. Mm-hmm. And so anytime that we see blue flowers, that tends to be representative of her. So that, it's like meant to be a symbol of her, and it's growing out of the wall. Most people believe this to be about Jon Snow.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't feel like it matters. It's just like, well, that's a nod that Jon Snow exists. And I'm like, great, I guess. A corpse being dragged behind a silver horse. And I don't think I even got to that part here. But it's being bounced behind. A white lion ran through grass taller than a man. Beneath the mother of mountains, a line of naked crones crept from a great lake and knelt shivering before her, their gray heads bowed. 10,000 slaves lifted blood-stained hands as she raced by on her silver, riding like the wind. Which, this feels familiar. All of a sudden, Drogon pulls her out of this, vision, and she looks around, and the Undying are right there. And they're pulling on her and, trying to hold her in place.
Yeah, they're, biting and, tugging on her hair. Their hands are all over her body, reaching for her clothes. It is horrible.
Yeah. The strength had left her limbs. She could not move. Even her heart had ceased to beat. She felt a hand on her bare breast twisting her nipple. And I'm like, why? But why, though? Sincerely, what is that about? Teeth found the soft skin of her throat. A mouth descended on one eye, licking, sucking, biting.
Unacceptable.
Excuse me?
Absolutely unacceptable.
Nope, not here.
What we are not going to do today is bite somebody's eyeball.
There's just some stuff that is too weirdly phrased. It's one thing to be like, I'm going to gouge your eyes out. But if somebody told you, I am going to wrap my lips around your eye socket and bite your eyeball in half, that's a lot more fucking terrifying. Holy shit. You're not recovering from that threat. So, at this point, Drogon is like, you know what? Fuck this. And breathes fire. And the Undying begin to scream. Their flesh crumbles away. And they just go up in flames.
They were like paper as it is. So.
And she blows through them. Because they basically just almost turn instantly to ash. Dany ran searching for any door, but there was nothing. She kept her feet and ran faster. And suddenly, the door was there ahead of her. A door like an open mouth. When she spilled out into the sun, the bright light made her stumble. Pyat Pri was gibbering in some unknown tongue and hopping from one foot to the other. When Dany looked behind her, she saw thin tendrils of smoke forcing their way through the cracks in the ancient stone walls. And he comes at her to try and stab her to death, I guess. And Drogon is like, doubt it. And Jogo is like, same. And he whips the knife out of the guy's hand, which is frankly amazing. And then it says an instant later, Rakara was slamming Pyat to the ground. Sir Jorah Mormont knelt beside Dany in the cool green grass and put his arm around her shoulder. And that is how that chapter ends, which I did not recall. It just ends that abruptly.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot.
What do you think is going on with the Undying trying to eat her alive?
I'm wondering how literal that really would have turned out to be. I mean, she was under some type of, hallucinogenic or some shit, when she walked in there. Yeah, I don't know. Something about that end part, didn't feel quite as real as some of the visions that she saw. Which, to be fair, they feel very real to me because I know some of them, happen. So that's
right.
You know what I mean? It's hard for me to divorce that. I still am not sure I understand why she went in this place.
Yeah, this was actually, that's a good point to like start talking about that.
So real quick, if I remember correctly on the show, she ends up going in there because they have stolen her dragons.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
a whole different situation.
Yeah. Here, there's a quick line where she thinks she's talking to somebody for real, and she says something like she's here for like knowledge and weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that he just told her that's what she would find here.
Right. Yeah, because that's like feels a little thin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just meant to be like show how desperate she is, because she doesn't really have anything else going for her, I suppose.
That's true. At this point, the other one has made himself very clear about what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Cool visions, though.
This is, and again, there is not a right answer here because it's all theory. But I think that the reason the show went with, they stole her dragons and she has to get them back, is because the ending of this scene where they're, eating her alive, whether or not that's like symbolic, that feels to me like the Undying are trying to kill her and potentially take her dragon. Like, that there is something so magical about the dragons inherently that it has increased their power abruptly in a way that hasn't been for
Well, you know
years.
what? I'll tell you what. I like that because in the Tyrion chapter, we find out that according to the necromancers, they are producing wildfire at a better rate and a better quality. And one of the things they're wondering is, have you heard anything about dragons? Because it's been a minute since we've been this good. So, yeah, I like the idea that just dragons being in the world again is having various impacts on different types of magic.
Yeah, I feel like
I like that.
They sensed it in her and with Drogon, and they were going for it. So, like, in the show, they were like, well, why don't we just make this more obvious and have it be that, like, the dragons are being held hostage.
Right. Now, let me ask you this question real quick, and then we can get to the Tyrion chapter.
Okay.
Do you remember this scene from the show with her in the house of the Undying?
Very little of it.
Right? So, if I remember correctly, one of the big takeaways was there was her, and she was, like, looking at the Iron Throne in King's Landing, and there was, like, what looked like snow, but was later interpreted as being ash, was kind of falling all over the place.
Right.
That doesn't seem to be... I mean, the closest this chapter got to that was when she was actually watching the Mad King, and shit wasn't even on fire yet, I don't think.
No, he's just threatening things.
So that is not even in the book at all, then.
Yeah, this is one of those things that it was so weird to watch the show and see what they decided to do with this part in particular, because
yeah, it's killing me that I can't remember all the other visions she saw. Like, I can't say for sure if the same ones in the book were included. I want to say no, but I can be unreliable in that way.
Same. Yeah, I genuinely, that one scene is the only one I remember because it felt so ham-fisted to me in comparison to the ones in the book. And not even ham-fisted, that just sounds inherently negative. But it just seemed more obvious, what they were doing there with the we're going to be ambiguous. Is it snow or ash? Which honestly read for me you don't know what you're going to do for the ending, so you're leaving it open for yourself.
Exactly.
And Pyat Pri, the way he reacts when she comes out of there, did he send her in intending for her to never come out? Or did something go on while she was in there that he was connected to and understood? This
is the thing where I was torn. Part of me felt like he was betting on her not making it out. But in her way of making it out, she also sets all his shit on fire. So I was like, okay, maybe the attack is based on the fact that, like, she is burning down their palace of dust.
I guess so.
So I wasn't really, I'm not sure.
There was something about how it was like, is it gibbering? Gibbering? I've heard it said both ways.
Yeah, I probably would have said gibbering, but I'm not the one you want to listen to when it comes to these things. I hear some people pronounce it GIF.
Nobody says GIF.
See,
get out of here. That's a peanut butter, end of.
If you watched Ted Lasso, you would have got that joke.
I think I had you explain that joke to me one time, so I still get it. By the time I watch Ted Lasso, every scene I'm going to be like, Rashawn told me about this.
I can't help myself. I'm trying so hard not to talk about it with you, but I love it so much.
Rashawn wants me to cover it so bad, you guys, and she wants to cover it with me, but there is just no time in her schedule to fit it in, and she's dying over it a little bit.
I really am dying over it a little bit. I had a couple of days where I thought I could do it, but then luckily I was like, let's not
came
announce
to your
it
senses.
Because
yeah.
But I wanted to do it real bad, y'all. Real bad. But anyway, and if you haven't watched out there, you should watch it.
Owen started watching it without me right next to me on the plane.
That is inexcusable.
I stopped and I was like, what is that? Is that Ted Lasso? I'm right here. Are you serious? And he genuinely was like, I don't get it. Why are you so upset? I was like, oh my God, no. First of all, I can't believe that you would watch this without me.
Yeah.
But even if you were going to watch it without me, don't do it where I can fucking see the screen and everything. So it's all ruined for me beforehand. Jesus. Anyway.
It has been a bumpy couple days, huh?
Listen, guys, this trip, there were some real high points, but man, the stress. God. I just don't even want to talk about it because my blood pressure is going to go up.
All right.
Yeah, I guess Pyatt Pre just being like, you burned my shit down, bitch. What the fuck? That's more than enough actual reason. There was just something about the fact that he was gibbering, and I'm going to go with gibbering, that made me feel like he was possessed or enchanted and not fully in control of his own faculties.
Oh, it didn't occur to me at all.
But I may just be full of it. And also, if he intended for her to never come out, he sure gave her the best possible advice for definitely making it out.
Yeah, that's the thing that's weird, because he sends her to this place with all of these obvious perils. So it feels right to be like, oh, well, he's hoping she don't make it the fuck out. Mm-hmm. But then I don't know, maybe it's one of those things like the Fae where you can't lie directly. So, I don't know, maybe part of the deal is you have to tell them what to do to get out. Now, whether they can remember it and stick to it in there, that's on them,
Right.
But again, that's reaching and just adding some shit that is not on the page.
All right, well, folks, chime in on the old Discord. So, okay, then we go to Tyrion. And like I said in the intro, Tyrion's up to a lot of shit in this chapter. There's a lot going on. He is seeing off his people. Yeah,
he's deploying some of his troops.
Yeah.
And it's some of his guys, the Stone Crews and whatnot. And he feels
very vulnerable.
Yes. And you know what? I understand that, because he has been, these guys are giant, first of all. Let us not forget.
Yeah.
These aren't some city-bred soldiers. And suddenly they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And the city is still very hostile to Tyrion, at this point. So he's feeling a little exposed.
If you're at a party and the only people you know leave, that's bad enough.
Oh, you have to leave then, too.
Right? But if you're, relying on them to keep you alive, much worse. And Tyrion is trying to, give them advice, and Shaga is like, look, bitch, I appreciate it, but we don't need your, backseat Monday quarterback shit.
Like, my fucking father showed me all this before I had a beard. Get out of here. And then when Tyrion is like, well, just listen to the guides, because they know this terrain better than you two. And they're like, okay, well, listen to your pet.
Rude. So rude. I love that he says it solemnly as well. Like, he's being so insulting, but it doesn't feel like he knows how insulting he's being. He still had bronze hirelings, near 800 of them now, but sellswords were notoriously fickle. Tyrion had done what he could to buy their continued loyalty, promising Bronn and a dozen of his best men lands and knighthoods when the battle was won. And Bronn basically warns him they will kill for that knighthood, but they won't die for it. So this is probably super obvious and not profound at all, but there is something about that observation that I just really, really love. Same.
It's such an important and yet subtle distinction, because often we don't make a difference between the two statements. For us, saying, that I would kill for somebody is equal to saying I would die for somebody. We think, but it is not.
It really isn't.
They are not equals. I love that so much.
And Tyrion, when Bronn says this to him, is like, yeah, no shit. He is highly aware.
Yeah, he's like, I've been buying people my whole life. I don't need this lecture.
He does the Shaga thing.
Shaga.
Before I had a beard, I was aware of that. Bitches ain't shit. Men are so faithless, as Viserys says later. I love that line to enter on. Men are such faithless creatures, I think is the way he says it, which I just find endlessly entertaining. The gold cloaks were almost as uncertain a weapon. 6,000 men in the city watch, but only a quarter of them could be relied upon. There's few out-and-out traitors, though there's some, Bywater had warned him, but there's hundreds greener than spring grass, men who joined for bread and ale and safety. No man likes to look craven in the sight of his fellows, so they'll fight brave enough at the start, when it's all war horns and blowing banners. But if the battle looks to be going sour, they'll break, and they'll break bad. The first man to throw down his spear and run will have 1,000 more trotting on his heels. Not great.
Yeah, it really is not the kind of thing that inspires a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I appreciate that Tyrion seems very aware of what his circumstances actually are, because, that helps you plan for other types of contingencies. But no, it is not good.
Yeah. It really throws into perspective, like, just saying sheer numbers compared to, like, how much people believe in a cause and how experienced they actually are. And, like, how equipped they are and what other options are open to them also. Just there's a lot of variables. Just numbers isn't enough. So at this point, they come down to the keys where all of these things are piled up against the walls. And Tyrion, well, first somebody throws a fish at him. Should be mentioned. Wow, that was a real evil laugh.
I'm sorry.
That was, like, amazing. Oh my god. But they throw a fish at him, and that shit, like, hits the ground right in front of him and just explodes into a million rotten pieces. And then you've got all these kids that run out and try and grab the pieces to eat, which is so awful. But yeah, eventually he gets to the walls, and all of this stuff has been built up against the walls, and it will make it so easy for Stannis to get over them.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we're gonna need to get rid of all of this.
Yeah.
Burn it all to the ground. They're not gonna like that, and he's like, "Dodoy." Why are you telling me that? I don't care what they like.
Did I see them throw that fucking fish at me?
Like,
it was 30 seconds ago.
Some may fight, see that they lose. Like, Bronn, why do you even make Tyrion say it? What do you think he's going to tell you? And Tyrion tells him, like, try not to kill them, because they're not the enemy. It doesn't need to be that way.
And for God's sakes, quit all the raping.
Yeah.
So,
and Bronn is like, be reasonable. That's just like, oh my God.
He really does say that, right?
Next you'll be telling me you want them sober.
Jesus
with this
Christ.
fucking like look on his face. Oh God. And Tyrion's like, I wish that we had better walls. And then it's like, well, Storm's End and Harrenhal and Winterfell had great walls, and that did not matter at all. So maybe that wouldn't help.
So news has reached King's Landing about what has happened at Winterfell. Mm-hmm. And, somehow it makes it feel more official to me.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, but, like I was there. I wasn't there, but I read the chapter. I saw it happen. And still somehow this feels like, like, okay, this is news I can trust. Like, Theon is just filled with fake news. I can't go by what he has to say.
Oh, it's funny. And it's really interesting because he is not sure why he isn't happier about the news that Winterfell has fallen.
Yeah.
It's great news for them. It's going to distract Robb. It makes him look bad. It fractures his alliances. And yet, he just isn't pleased with this. It rubs him the wrong way.
Yeah. It's like he's got, I don't know, I might be overstating it, but it's almost sort of a sentimental thing that he's experiencing. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't seem to be sure why.
Yeah.
At one point, he's remembering the Godswood, and he's remembering how he's never felt more out of place anywhere that he'd ever been. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd never felt so unwelcome. And he thought to himself, he wonders if the Greyjoys would feel it too, because those woods would never, like, belong to them. Mm-hmm. And he's saying it with almost like this sort of respect.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. 100%.
I also wonder if it's not just about the fall of Winterfell, but that who it fell to.
Yeah. He's trying to remember Theon, and he, like, vaguely can. But there seems to be almost a sense of, like, really? That guy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Considering how strong Winterfell felt to him when he was there, it is, like, kind of unnerving, I think.
Yeah.
So, let's see. He goes to the Mudgate. They're throwing arms. There are like these 3 giant trebuchets that they call the 3 whores because they'd be giving Lord Stannis such a lusty welcome. And I'm like, be honest, guys. You came up with the reasoning for this after you decided to call them the 3 whores. You went with that first, and then you were like, well, we need to make this make sense. I think. At least maybe George R. R. Martin did that, The ride back to the Red Keep was uneventful, but at the Tower of the Hand, he found a dozen angry trader captains waiting in his audience chamber to protest the seizure of their ships. He gave them a sincere apology, promised compensation, and they're like, and what if you lose? And he's like, indeed. Then I guess go to Stannis, doy. He waddled across the yard almost at a run and crowded into the back of the castle sept as Joffrey fastened white silk cloaks about the shoulders of the 2 newest members of his Kingsguard.
So this is fun. Mm-hmm. So he's got 2 new Kingsguard, and one of them is Cersei's choice. Mm-hmm. And she picked somebody named Kettleblack, who is already in cahoots with Tyrion.
Yeah.
And you hate to see it.
He's as loyal as he is brave, she said. Unfortunately, that was true. Oh, that's a good line. I love that.
You know, she had been planning and plotting for this. And I'm sure she had, just a litany of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just turns out to be just another person that is betraying her to Tyrion.
Yep.
And I feel kind of bad for her. I mean, and like, imagine if all of the people that you think you can trust the most are the people you can trust the least. And you're just, like, surrounded by them.
Have you watched any of Succession?
I have not. I know a lot of people are talking about it.
It was the kind of thing where I was like, oh, really? A dynasty about rich white people? I'm not interested. And then so many folks were talking about it. I was like, all right, let me just give it one episode. And oh, damn, they got me. They got me. But there is a character that has this same sort of, like, they keep thinking they're really making moves. And they aren't. And it's, like, hard to watch. Like, you don't exactly want them to win because they're all so awful. But just, like, watching them fail in such an embarrassing way is also awful. So it's like, which do I hate more? At least one of her choices, Tyrion is like, okay, that's actually not a bad pick. Balon Swan is part of a family that is essentially out here hitting up everybody.
They are just making sure they are good with every crew so that no matter what happens, the family line will continue.
Yep.
That's some long, forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. And I mean, to be sworn into the Kingsguard, that's a lot. Like, that's a pretty intense position.
Well, oh wait, no, that's Night Watch. Never mind.
Wait,
no, I was confusing Night's Watch with Kingsguard. Kingsguards can have, titles and castles and shit because they tried to retire Selmy to something like that, right?
They tried to retire him to that, but that is not de rigueur, as they say. And that's part of why when Jaime joined,
right,
Tywin was real pissed.
Right, so he's like not giving up having a child and like taking over his Lord of Castle. So this kid from this family that joined the maybe not so smart. You can't continue the family line.
That's true, but he could ensure the rest of his family stays alive if they get captured or something by being like, well, just give him 50 lashes, but let him live. I'm on the Kingsguard. I don't know. That's how this stuff works, right? I'm just... Let's see. Tyrion could not say the same for Cersei's second choice. Sir Osmond Kettle Black looked formidable enough. He supposed he ought not complain. The appointment gave him another ear close to the king, and even if Sir Osmond proved an utter craven, he would be no worse than Sir Boros Blount, currently residing in a dungeon at Rossby. Sir Boros had been escorting Tommen and Lord Giles when Sir Jacelyn Bywater and his gold cloaks had surprised them, and had yielded up his charge with an alacrity that would have enraged old Sir Barristan Selmy as much as it did Cersei. A knight of the Kingsguard was supposed to die in defense of the king and royal family. His sister had insisted that Joffrey strip Blount of his white cloak on the grounds of treason and cowardice, and now she replaces him with another man just as hollow. So, that's it. He's like the sellswords, practically. Just immediately like, never mind. I'm good. Take her. This means, I am assuming, Tommen is with Bywater still, right?
I mean, yeah, or returned back to...
Oh, yeah, because Tyrion has a conversation with him later about how Tommen's doing.
Yeah, and he says that he's doing well.
Yeah, so these are the guys I think that Tyrion was like, okay, sending Tommen out was a good idea, Cersei, but not with those people. I want them sent with my people. Does that Does that ring a bell? Sorry,
Yeah,
guys. It's been like so long since we recorded the last episodes that I've lost track of some things.
I was going to say that they would be returned back. He would be back with Cersei until I remembered that Bywater is sort of Tyrion's man.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it's so that Tyrion can have the people that he wanted to be involved from the first place.
Yeah. So it's not exactly that Blunt turned traitor to the crown so much as he caved to somebody who was representing Tyrion instead of following the orders given to him by the Queen Regent, which is what stings Cersei, I think, more than anything. Does that seem right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think the first point of just that they are supposed to, by definition, die in the protection, of their charges.
But I mean, like, he knew Jacelyn Bywater wasn't going to kill Tommen. When she says, like, you're supposed to die in protection, that wasn't actually what was at stake. It was, like, her ego that was at stake, if I'm not mistaken. Do you get what I'm saying?
So you think the main reason she's upset with him is because he gave in when he really didn't have to, and it makes her look bad?
Yeah, I do. Like, he's supposed to obey her orders, and as soon as somebody showed up who repped Tyrion, he was immediately like, do what you want. It's fine. I don't want to be in trouble. So
you think if it had been someone else that didn't represent Tyrion, though I can't think of who else it would be, he wouldn't have given up so easily?
I don't know. I think probably he wouldn't. I think Tyrion is just carrying enough influence right now that people are being more cautious.
Gotcha.
With him.
So he's got the big stick right now.
Right now, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's my like assessment of it, but I would be welcome to hearing other people's theories on that. This is when we check in with Shay. And she's not thrilled about what's going on.
She wants to take all of her finery to her new job as a handmaid.
Oh, my God.
And he's just like, babe, you can't have nicer stuff than the family you work for. Mm-hmm. I'll just keep it all at my place. And that way you can come wear it when you come see me. Which I didn't love.
Why is that?
Just, I don't know, something about it rubbed me the wrong way. You can have your nice stuff when you come see me, Mm-hmm. But I know he didn't mean it that way. Like, what are his options? She can't take that shit with her.
I think she is feeling the same way you are, though. Just like, oh, really? It makes it feel like it's less hers. It doesn't belong to her the same way.
Yeah, and she can only have access to it when he can enjoy it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, it was one of those, like, when I first read this, I was kind of like, she can't just, like, keep that in her trunk of stuff and they just don't know it's there. And then I was like, well, first of all, I don't really trust Shay to have great judgment about not pulling that shit out where somebody can see it.
The help, they have no expectations of privacy. There's no privacy for when you're the help.
That was my, like, follow-up was just like, oh, yeah, and also, why would I think they would respect that? Yeah, choose 2 or 3 dresses, wool, no silk, no samite, no fur. The rest I'll keep in my own chambers. It was not the answer she had wanted, but at least she was safe. At this point, we have Tyrion talking to the Septon.
This killed me. I don't know why, because, of course, it makes perfect tactical sense. But Tyrion is basically telling the church that Stannis is like a heathen now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And not only does he now worship this sort of, pagan Lord of Light nonsense, he's also threatening, any man who doesn't betray the gods along with him.
Right.
And it's... I mean, maybe Stannis would have did that.
I think he would. I mean, it just feels like, even if Stannis wasn't particularly interested, Melisandre would have gotten him there eventually, But Tyrion's definitely ladling it on.
Yeah. And he also says that anyone who does decide to follow Stannis will be like betraying their own gods, which is like a whole other level of psychology. Not unlike what we see here.
True.
And in a lot of ways, but
okay. So then we go to the Pyromancers. I think you called them necromancers earlier.
I might have.
Which, we don't know. That's not true. So that's fine.
But it was an assumption on my part. I don't know these men like that.
So, let's see. Oh, that's right. There was an old letter from Doran Martell warning him that Storm's End had fallen, and a much more intriguing one from Balin Greyjoy on Pike, who styled himself King of the Isles and the North. He invited King Joffrey to send an envoy to the Iron Islands to fix the borders between their realms and discuss a possible alliance. And Tyrion is a little bit like, I mean, ships wouldn't be bad, but that's a pretty big deal we're going to have to make.
And they are way on the other side of where I need to be right now. And then he thinks, maybe I'll just let Cersei fuck this one up.
Yeah, I really do kind of like that. Being like, well, I don't want to not do anything, but I also don't want to be held responsible for any of it. And that means it's hers now.
He's like, yeah, her or the council. Which, I mean...
Same thing.
Kinda.
So, at this point, Helene, the Pyromancer, comes in and tells him, Ayo, we've got 13,000 jars. And Tyrion is like, no the fuck you do not, you liar. I know how much you had. And there is no goddamn way on this earth that you suddenly have like 3 times what you promised me.
He tries to be like, oh, well, we found a couple. We found like 300. Which we're talking about 13,000 jars and you found 300, sir.
Right.
That is not enough.
And basically this guy is like, he's sweating in such a way that it makes it sound like he's lying, even though I don't believe him to be lying.
Yeah, this is when he starts talking about how, the more they made, the better they got, the faster it got. And, a lot of their spells and secrets of our order, he calls them. And he just says they seem to be working better than they were working before. And this is when he's kind of like, you don't think that, have you heard anything about dragons?
Yeah.
And Tyrion is like not amused.
Yeah.
And he just really like politely explains like, well, there's an old wives' tale basically that says, our spells seemed more effective when the dragons were around, and they've not been the same since the last one died.
Yeah, and Tyrion's just like, no, there are no dragons, so you should be warned that I still think you're a fucking liar, and we're checking all these jars, and if any of them contain horse piss, like I suspect, I'm going to have your head cut off, essentially. And poor Helene has to walk out of there like, okay. I just really felt for the guy. He's out here over producing, right? Doing his best, getting punished,
exceeding expectations.
Yeah,
he's having like a bare sliver of hope of some sort of magic might being back in the world, and it just gets shot down and mocked and threatened.
Poor sap.
And then this is when we get the report on how Tommen is doing.
Yes, so Jocelyn comes in and says that Tommen's great. He adopted a fawn. He had one once before, he says, but Joffrey skinned her for a jerkin.
Fucking Joffrey.
He's such a monster. And he did that specifically to upset Tommen. Like, that was not just like, oh, there's a deer, I'm going to do this thing because that's what I do with deer. It was definitely, that's my little brother's pet, and I enjoy inflicting pain on people, and he will be so sad when he realizes that I have killed his pet.
And I will get such a hard on.
100%. And I love how Jocelyn is like, yeah, he's written a few letters to Marcella. He doesn't finish them, but he writes them. Joffrey, he does not seem to miss. No shit. You have made suitable arrangements for him should the battle be lost. My men have their instructions, which are, you commanded me to tell no one, my lord. I'm pleased you remember. So, yeah, Tyrion is preparing for the eventuality that he is captured and tortured for information.
Right, and if King's Landing falls, don't really give a fuck about if they get Joffrey. But it's probably good to have, like, one of the heirs be safe somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And this is when Varys strolls in and says, men are such faithless creatures. So much villainy. It sings a sad song for our age.
Yeah, and he brings them this list of traitors, you know. And there are lots of people on there. And they got themselves a name. They call themselves the Antler Men. Mm-hmm. And then
Not Tyrion, a great name.
Tyrion says they can be the Hot Hearts, which sounds like a 50s doo-wop band.
It does. I love that. Man. Yeah, that's pretty good. It appeared that these Antler Men had armed several hundred followers to seize the old gate once battle was joined and admit the enemy to the city. Pretty serious.
Yeah. Like, it be your own, Tyrion. That's what they say on the internets.
And it ends with Tyrion seeing that one of the names is the armorer that he was hoping to get a really cool helm from eventually. Oh. And he's just like, well, guess I'm not getting that. This is annoying, as he signs the paper for this guy to be arrested. And that is how that chapter ends. That's
a pretty good little callback.
Yeah. So yeah, we're ramping up here. We're at 72% through the book, according to ye old Kindle. We're going to start getting into it pretty soon. It is wild how long this book is, though. What? 72%. I feel like we've been covering this one forever.
It does feel like it's been most of the year. And this is only book 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Holy fuck, what did I get into? Jesus.
Says the woman who finished a series and then immediately was like, let's cover that same series one more time.
You know, it's funny. I told you, I was re-listening, you know, for reasons. Mm-hmm. And you make that joke in, like, the second episode.
That we should do a reread?
Yeah.
And you never thought in your life that you would be down for it. And then you were, like, not just down, but excited about it.
You were like, yeah, that's something people want.
No, just leave it at things people want and not things that will happen.
Yeah, you were not confident.
I mean, I didn't want to push my luck. Getting you to do the podcast in the first place, that was already like quite a win. I wasn't ready for that to be like messed with at all.
All right. Well.
So, real quick, I want to say hi to new patrons from the last time that there aren't that many actually, considering we were gone 3 weeks. But I want to say hi to them. There is Aradith, Robert Foster, Tom Fitzgerald, Annie Almond, Cleo Caldwell, and Eric Bearfield. So welcome to all of you. Thank you all very much for pledging. And I really, especially like with the holidays coming up, I'm not really going to be buying gifts for people because I have no money now that the wedding is over and we went on our honeymoon and there is no money. So I'm not going to try and be like, with the holidays coming, I really could use that money for gifts. It's just more like, with the holidays coming, you guys are keeping me from feeling completely panicked. So appreciate you. And if you're interested in becoming a patron, you can go to patreon.com/unspoiled and sign up for a number of different tiers that include a number of different benefits. And even if you aren't a patron, you can come to the Discord server And join us in conversations there. And we have a channel that is Song of Ice and Fire with spoilers and without. And please keep in mind, folks, if you are in the No Spoilers channel and you are using spoiler tags on something because we haven't gotten there yet, that is for the spoiler channel, not the No Spoilers channel. Don't do it. All right? Because Rashawn clicks on things because she won't know what's safe and what's not. I do.
I'd be clicking with wild abandon.
Yep. So just be aware. And yeah, I am going to be getting back into the Discord. I had just been sort of like left with the trip and everything and barely was in there. But I'm looking forward to coming back and getting into it with everybody again. So I hope that also if you play Animal Crossing, there's an Animal Crossing channel, and like this is just a fun time of year for Animal Crossing. I've been getting into that, so you can come and see my island. I made a little skating pond that's frozen with a little snowman. Anyway, all right, guys, love you. We will see you next week with 2 more chapters, and until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.